So rerolling item affixes in Diablo 4 is undoubtedly the largest gold sink, which if you carelessly let the cost ramp up by rerolling something that might not even be ideal, you can really break yourself from being able to upgrade some of the other more worthwhile and cost-efficient items down the line and really actually slow down your progression as a result. Namely, a recent discovery has shown us that there are actually different rarities and priorities for different affixes when you reroll at the Occultist, meaning that there are just certain affixes and also certain items that you get that will cost you millions upon even tens of millions of gold to reroll, while with another seemingly similar item, you might actually only need to spend hundreds of thousands or even just a few million. Fortunately though, with this newfound information, somebody has already developed a tool that'll help us determine and predict how much gold we can actually expect to spend rerolling and targeting a specific affix on a specific item. Before we begin though, I just want to give a special shout out to content creator and Diablo master Udijo, who actually showed us this tool a few days ago. But I thought I'd just cover it really quick again, just to get it more exposure and also just to add my 2 cents to it. So with that, let's get right into checking out this new tool. So here's the tool I wanted to show you called D4Craft, and it essentially allows you to predict the amount of gold you'll be expected to spend to reroll a certain specific affix based on how rare each affix is relative to each other, right? So for example, of course you can select from any item on this list and also your class, because different classes will have different pools for affixes, which also means that there are certain classes that if you reroll items with will actually produce or will actually be able to reroll a certain affix more cheaply because they have a smaller pool, right? If you want that specific one. But anyhow, just going through an example just to show you gloves on a druid, because that's the main class that I play. So here I have gloves selected as well as druid selected, as you can see from the top left. You also want to specify item power because that'll determine the breakpoints, essentially, the amount of power of each roll, right? So basically the numerical values of each roll that are able to be rolled or spawned, right? Based on the item power. And then the sell value is important as well. This is just like a random example, a rough example. The amount an item costs to reroll will be based on the sell value of an item. So you want to make sure to punch that in as well. And here, if I go down, there are different categories, as you can see, of affixes. There are core affixes that are items or affixes that can appear on any item regardless of your class. And then below that, there are then these class specific ones. And then down below that, these are a bit less, or these are more niche, like special affixes that are only rollable on uniques and certain specific items like named rare drops, I suppose, but I wouldn't really worry too much about this category. And then of course you also have legendary aspects. This isn't as useful either because you can't re-roll legendary aspects at the Occultist, right? You can only imprint and get these as drops, right? Or like from the Codex of Power. Anyhow, getting into my specific example here, first of all, in terms of core affixes, let's say I wanted to specify, or I wanted a tornado glove for a tornado druid spec. So I would want attack speed. Here you can actually click, so you can click add as requirement or remove as requirement with this sign here. And then you can also toggle the tiers just to see the item power breakpoints. But I already have item power 800 up here, so it's already the final breakpoint, the most powerful breakpoint. So I can click add as requirement, or you can click add to item if that role already exists on an item, right? So let's say I'll do add to item, and the L, I don't know why it's called L, or labeled L, but L means the role has already existed or is already existing on that item. So I have attack speed, critical strike chance, and lucky hit chance, which are all good rolls for Tornado Druid, by the way, already on that glove, right? So for my fourth affix, I would want rings to tornado, obviously, and so this would be the one that I'm targeting. And so for this, the one that I'm targeting to reroll, I would click add as requirement on the left, right? And then it would be highlighted in red. And I suppose I cannot specify the exact rank that I get on tornado here, but they might actually update this website to be able to allow you to do so. But anyhow, I can still predict how much gold I would be expected to spend to roll based on the probability a plus ranks to tornado on these gloves, right? So if we score up, I can actually expect 19 tries on an item power 800 gloves with the sell value, which would on average cost me 21 million gold, which is quite a hefty chunk. And this number can definitely change based on the odds of the affix that you can get, right? So what I mean specifically is if you look over at the list of affixes here, there are special sort of labels on each of them, or on some of them rather, where, for example, this one, the ones with skulls, you have to pay special attention to because these are called priority affixes. Priority affixes are basically affixes that will, if it's not already on the specific item, for example, if attack speed and crit chance, and let's see what others there are. There's like storm skill reduction is another one. These are the 3 priority affixes for a druid glove. And so the way priority affixes work, and it's actually explained up here at the website as well. But anyhow, if any of these are not yet present on your item, one of these will always spawn when you re-roll the item, right? So since on my gloves, I still have one more priority affix that is not yet rolled on my gloves. Whenever I do re-roll it, one of them being this one, the only one, will always show up when I re-roll. So you can't have 2, by the way. So for example, if my gloves didn't have crit chance and attack speed or storm skill cooldown, one of these will always appear when I re-roll. But since I already have these 2, attack speed and crit chance, the one that's left is storm skill cooldown reduction, and this will always come up when I try to reroll, which is why it's so expensive to get the desired stat that I want, because there's basically only one more slot left. Remember, when you reroll, you get 2 extra slots, right? Or rather, you get to keep your original affix, or you get 2 more to pick from, right? And one of those 2 more that it shows you will always be a priority affix if there's still any that you don't already have on your item. And that's why it's so expensive to roll, say, Ranks of Tornado, right? Or any other non-priority affix, because there's always going to be one of the 2 slots that is going to be Storm Skill cooldown reduction, which means you're only really re-rolling the other slot depending on the other 1 slot of 2 to roll your desired affix, in this case, Ranks to Tornado. And to sort of prove my point here, if I happen to want a priority affix as a reroll, let's say I actually want a storm skill cooldown reduction on my gloves, which I don't yet have, it would only take 1 try to get it, right? Because it's guaranteed to show up being the last priority affix that I don't yet have on my gloves, which is why it's only going to cost me 1 try and 45,000 gold. And so the main takeaway from this, whenever you want to, or decide whether you want to reroll an item, is how many non-priority affixes that are desirable by your spec already exist on that item, right? The more that it has, the cheaper it is that you'll be able to get your targeted affix, right? Which, especially if that targeted affix is going to be one of these priority affixes, right? So for instance, let me do a live example, which is that let me remove, let's say, remove critical strike chance. And my gloves already dropped with ranks to tornado, as well as attack speed and lucky hit chance. And so the last roll that I need, critical strike chance, being a priority affix, I would only need to roll it once, right? Similar to my previous example, to be able to get this priority affix. So if I click on it, oops, if I click on here, oh, okay, I would actually need 2 tries because there's actually another affix that competes with this, right? So on average, I would need 2 tries because there's 2 priority affixes left, being crit chance and storm skill cooldown reduction. So one of these 2 will show up, always show up. One of these 2 will always show up when I try to reroll, and it'll cost me on average 27,000 gold and 2 tries. And also one more cool trick that you can use to save even more gold or target even specific affixes is to utilize your alts to reroll. For example, up at the top here, it actually tells you the best class to roll a certain affix with. In this case, if I wanted again, critical strike chance on my gloves. Since obviously barbarians cannot roll this priority affix, being a druid specific affix, its priority affix will be crit chance instead, which means with a barbarian, by rolling or re-rolling these gloves of the barbarian, I would only need 1 try because it has fewer competing priority affixes. And to further help you determine what class you want to use to re-roll an affix to save the most gold possible and resources as well, you can actually go to the affixes list at the very top of the page, Or let me show you this page first. So there's the whole list of affixes divided by core, again, which can appear for any class as well as class specific ones. But perhaps a even more helpful website is this one here. This is an infographic that someone has put together from Mobalytics, and this actually helpfully shows you all the various possible affixes in a more legible or easier to understand rather chart for each class. And generally, if you want to roll a specific affix for each item slot, so for example, it starts from helm to chest and so on and so forth. If you want to target a specific affix that is rollable by multiple classes, or even a specific class, you just want to target or reroll the item with the specific class with the fewest number of affixes in that pool, right? But again, it's also not that simple because you do have to check whether the affix you want is a priority affix or not, right? And so you would probably combine both of these tools to make the most out of each. And another example is there are actually affixes, of course, that only certain classes can roll. For example, lucky hit chance when you have a barrier on a sorcerer. Some classes and specific builds might actually want this, but that class will not be able to roll it on their own, right? So for example, with a necromancer, if there's like a specific barrier build with like, if you use the bone storm barrier generation aspect, you can actually reroll a helmet on a sorcerer to be able to spawn lucky hit chance with barrier and then use that item on a necromancer. And so having knowledge of priority affixes and their implications for enchanting will definitely save you a ton of gold, especially going into Season 1 of Diablo 4. And with that, consider hitting this video with a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe to my channel for even more videos just like this one. Plus, remember to follow me at twitch.tv/Measley for more cutting edge tips and just general gameplay. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.